Hello and welcome to the Easily Excitable podcast. My name is Topper and with me this week is Russell. Hey man, how's it going?
I'm very good, thank you. Yourself, my good man?
Yeah, I'm doing alright. It's been a bit of a hectic return to work and just catch up with everything once I got back from Texas. How about you?
Yeah, pretty similar sort of thing. Once you get to a certain level in life, you take a week off work and then you come back and it's like, oh, I asked people to be able to cover everything for me and it didn't look like that worked. So here goes, the first day back is always the worst, but it wasn't too bad this time. I was only away for out of the office for 7 work days, so it was good. And yes, same as you, returning from the almighty Texas to return to the wonderful British summer, which has now spent the last 2 days utterly pissing it down.
Yeah, it's been pretty grim, but yeah, it was fine until then. But yeah. So yeah, we both went to Texas for RTX, which was alright. We'll talk about that. But I really want to start by talking about the food, because the food in Austin is amazing. Where were your favourite places to go and eat? Or favourite place to go and eat? No, favourite places. You wouldn't. I in my head I had to justify that as being no, places means you went to the same place again and again, and I was and then I quantified justified by same place, and I was just that's not right. Rectify it immediately. So yeah.
Well, I think kind of along the similar lines of obviously kind of when Bernie did the food vlog, I can't just choose one place as being my favourite, because it's got such a wide variety of food choice that's available that kind of choosing one is just not right. I really like Ironworks, which is a barbecue place which is actually quite close to the convention center. It's just one of those places where you can just walk in and they're just I like brisket, and they're just yeah, how much, and you can just watch them kind of measure kind of how much you want and just cut it off and just be yeah, I'm gonna be bad today. I really actually liked Torchy's tacos for having some breakfast tacos to kind of
nice.
Start off the day. That was something that I hadn't tried the times I've been before, so that was nice. And then
same here. That was the first. I went to Torchy's for lunch one day and I got the fried avocado and another one, a mushroomy one, and oh my, they were good. Ooh, I had a delightful time at Torchy's. I didn't really know what to expect, but I've heard very good things about it all.
Yeah, and then it was kind of just a little bit more of maybe the more obvious one. Home Slice is an awesome kind of pizza place. I went to Pizzeries once as well to kind of have a burger. I would say that's fairly equivalent to kind of Five Guys over here in the UK. So, but a good quality burger. And yeah, I didn't go to some of the more popular ones, which are a little bit more out of the center of Austin, because there's just the bugger of getting to them back from them. So.
Yeah,
but
true.
they're all on the agenda. It's just the food is just, like you say, it's just so nice. It's not just Austin. Austin is definitely higher than a few other places I've been in the US, but there's definitely something different. I think in a lot of the major kind of US cities, I think it's the chance for space for new things to come and try, and then if they don't stick, they fail, and something else will replace it, which just doesn't happen in some of the major cities in the UK because the cost of everything for actually having space is just too much. You can't get it. It's very hard for a restaurant to start up in the UK, I think.
Yeah. There's a preference in the shopping mall kind of things that we have here, the shopping centres, that they will choose a chain restaurant that they know they're going to make money on. And it's just, you see a prevalence of those kind of things and a lack of real just restaurants around the place, especially where I live. In the town there's a distinct lack of restaurant options available. Also, a comparison between the United States and the UK is just that it's cheaper to eat over there out, and even for good quality meals, if you're going for a real good quality meal out there, it's probably the price of just a regular chain restaurant over here. And things over in the States, and the service over there is much higher standard.
But you can kind of I understand that, because effectively they live off tips. It's
true.
You just look, you take a quick look at what the actual minimum wage in most of those places are. So Texas, the minimum wage is horrendous. So they all live off tips, so you can understand the great service. To be honest, like, you never really know how much to tip and what you should tip and blah 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 blah. So if I'm perfectly honest, I'd rather be lazy and just know that basically these people were paid better, and so I just would pay
true.
more for the kind of the cost of it, because perfectly happy to do so. But it's like, especially, I always have the issue of like in a bar and going like, oh, I ordered a pint, and it comes to like $5 or whatever, and then it's kind of realizing that effectively they expect you to tip $1 kind of like for pouring a pint, and it's kind of like, because it's almost like unheard of not to tip, and then it's almost unheard of not to tip less than $1. So I mean, to tip less than $1. So it's kind of like, well, that's just 20% or even more just for pulling a beer. Like if you made a cocktail, then I could maybe see it, but it's, once again, it's just something we're not used to. Different social mechanism for making sure that people can actually live.
Yeah, totally. So like, there was some other places I went. I went Home Slice as well. I got like the eggplant and parmesan pizza there, and oh my, that was good. And I'm one that I like my food. I like eating lots of food, but I had like 3 slices of that 8-slice pizza, and I was like, well, that was plenty of food for me.
Yeah, I thought about
sharing
trying to
with Rachel, but like, you know.
I thought about having one of those moments where it was just like, can I order the large pizza like for myself and then eat it all? And it's just like, anywhere else in the world I could probably order a large pizza and be like, I'm gonna have no issues finishing this off myself. When you go to the US, I think the last time I went in for New York for work, I just wasn't thinking and I just ordered a large pizza, and it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's actually no way that I can finish this off. Kind of like, it was like a lunchtime meal, and it was just like, well, if I had an hour to eat this, I probably could, but kind of like, everybody else is going to be done with theirs in like 20 minutes tops.
Yeah, I got a medium, and I had 3 slices of it, and I was like, oh god, I'm so full, I can't eat it anymore. I was just like a bit of a, oh, it was so good pizza though, so good. And then, yeah, there was another place that's like a ramen place that's along 6th called Daruma, that's like really amazing ramen, but they have about 20 seats, and it's sit wherever there's a space available.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. They have like 5 things on their menu, and that's it.
Yeah, I think if that's a ramen place, it's a fairly kind of standard sort of thing. You don't have many options. It's just like, here is what it is. The portion size can be small, medium, or large.
Yeah, and yeah, they're probably the best ramen I've ever had. But I don't know if I've had ramen anywhere else, to be honest. But that was totally a highlight of my trip, being like, oh yes, let's have some ramen, because it is fantastic. So yeah, the other reason we were in Texas, probably the big reason, was for RTX, so Rooster Teeth's annual convention, kind of annual convention, as much as it's the one based in their home state where they work, rather than anywhere across the world, because there's ones in Sydney, Australia, and there's going to be one starting up in London later this year.
Indeed. October 24th and 25th. Tickets sold out.
Awesome. Yeah. I won't be going to that, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, like, what did you think of RTX this year? We'll start with just basic stuff, and then like both of us were VIPs. We'll discuss that in a minute and like what that meant as well. But for me, like, the main things was the main point that I thought about it was that there were just, I don't know, not necessarily too many people, but it was poorly organised to direct all of those people to get all the things that they needed to enjoy the convention effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, I think so. Anybody who was there, or probably anybody who's following social media on day one, was like, all you probably would have heard about was, oh my god, scanners, they've got to go, everybody, all these security scanners, we've got to go through these scanners, blah 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 blah, oh my god, it's taking so long, blah 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 blah. And like, yeah, that was effectively, for most people, probably an absolute nightmare. It was not well organised. Now, to add that, the next 2 days, they obviously saw it on Friday evening or whatever, Bethany's talked about it on a couple of occasions, and they spent like 4 hours or 6 hours of that evening, basically till like 2:30 in the morning, working out like a solution with Austin, with the convention center, which was in place on Saturday morning, and it was a far better solution than whatever they had before. And it was like kudos for getting them for sorting that out, but just me using a simple piece of mathematics could have told you that your initial idea was never going to work. Like having kind of 2 scanners on each kind of like entrance door meant that effectively you're going to get 2 people through every 10 seconds maybe. So if you've got tens of thousands of people, they're not going to get through those doors in any sort of time that would kind of like allow people to kind of do things. And so that's a cock up. It didn't really spoil Friday for me too much because I got onto the floor straight away, kind of went to the RT store and then did all of the things that I wanted to do on Friday. Like after kind of going to RTX the year before, I felt the floor was kind of the least important aspect of kind of like the whole entire expo as far as I was concerned. There was
I mean, I find it somewhere that's like it's nice to wander around and do something in like any downtime you've got, but it's not that important really.
No, there's nothing kind of, if you've been to any sort of expo, if you've been to a London Comic Con, or if you've been to even like any sort of con of any description, they're going to be 10 times bigger than what the Rooster Teeth one is. So it's just maybe a few more things that are like into that, like you have maybe like Mega 64 and Filthy Casual, so things that are kind of like linked up to the kind of like the Rooster Teeth Let's Play kind of like community, or just they're all kind of like people that they speak with as a whole. I think so a lot of people I don't think were particularly happy probably by midpoint of Friday, probably end of Friday, but I think a lot of people I then spoke to halfway through Saturday and on Sunday were far more happy with kind of like what the solution that was provided and everything that went on afterwards. And I think as much as I kind of like I want to lay blame because I think it was an issue that could or should have been known that it was going to happen, but once again it's kind of like Rooster Teeth are doing like this is like this seventh or like nine if you include kind of like the two which they've done in Sydney, but it's like this is only like the 9th or 7th expo which they've ever done, and you've got a new scenario thrown at them. So it's kind of, as much as they say kind of like it's their job to organise the events and that like that, they've not organised this event for 15-20 years and have ironed out all the different kinks that potentially would occur. It's like any major festival around the world, it's kind of the first few years generally there's always a new or different issue that they've never had before which pops up, and I put that down to that. I hope it's one that they learn from, and I think they did. So it was kind of like it was not too bad. You talked about kind of having like too many people there. It was a weird one because like I went last year as just like as a general admission, and
same here.
Kind of you really had to kind of like pick and choose what you wanted to kind of like, if you wanted to go to a panel, you really had to think kind of like I can't have anything kind of like maybe in the hour and a half, 2 hours before the panel, because it's like if I want to go to the panel, if I want to get kind of good seats, it's like you've got to queue 2 and a bit hours in advance. And I think one of the things they did really well this year was stop people from queuing in advance of when things should have been. So like day one, they were just like, do not queue for Ruby now. Like there is no, we will send you away. Like the queuing will start at kind of like this point. People who are queuing beforehand kind of like will send away. And I think they got that right for most of the day, apart from most of the weekend, apart from the off-topic panel, which I don't know. It's just somebody probably made a small mistake, and it probably this time may have fallen back down to just like a couple of Guardians who were just like, oh, there's nothing in this room now, we can just let people kind of like go in, because they let people go in like 3 or 4 hours before that panel was due. So it was kind of, by the time it was anywhere close, it was like it's already like ludicrously kind of like full.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your thoughts on that one, that aspect were.
Like, I don't like, last year there were a lot of like community panels, and last year I didn't really do any big panels, being general admission, because there was a lot, like I said, there's a lot of community panels that were going on, and this year there weren't like any from what I can tell, and that led to me doing some of the bigger panels, but it's difficult because I had no problems, but I saw people queuing up for hours for certain panels, and there was only like 2 or 3 panels I heard of where there was even queues for that were problematic. So, yeah, last year it was much easier for me because all the panels I wanted to go to was easy to get in because they were run by friends or people I knew, and I knew they weren't going to be particularly busy, so I could turn up 15, 20 minutes before, grab a seat, and just chill out in the hall. But this does feed nicely into the fact that both of us were VIPs this year, and
Yep.
for panel entry, I turned up to the Heroes and Halfwits versus Twits and Crits panel about 10 minutes before it was due to start.
Yep.
And I got in with no problems. However, there were hundreds of people queuing, and the room was nearly at capacity when I got in.
Yep.
Actually, I think I got there about half an hour before. That seems more reasonable. I got there, yeah, half an hour before, because we sat down in one location. Then they moved us across to the centre. We were in the centre aisle right next to the middle aisle that went straight up 3 rows back. And it was an excellent panel. It was really enjoyable. But yeah, getting into it was no problem for me, but I understand that there must have been people queuing for hours that were nowhere near in the situation or circumstance that I was in. And that seems to have been my story of the weekend. We got out of one of our signings and walked into the Ruby panel, and just immediately moved straight forwards because VIPs just show the badge and you get through to where you want to go.
Yep.
And all in all, like, having a VIP badge was great for going to panels, and I found that great because I really don't like standing and queuing, and it's not just that I don't like it, it's that if I stand still in the same spot for more than 10 minutes or so, my back starts to hurt. So when you have to queue for more than 30 minutes, my back becomes agony, and I physically cannot stand. And the fact that we weren't allowed to sit as well doesn't help that, but if I sit on the floor, then I need to keep moving around, and no one wants me taking up that much space on the floor when I could be standing and taking up significantly less space. So the fact that we were VIPs really helped me out, because I could always be like, oh yeah, I want to go to that panel, and half an hour before it's on, head there, get a seat, and be fine. But
Yeah, I think kind of.
what was your experience?
I would say kind of like a fairly similar sort of thing. Kind of like, I think one of the reasons why I coughed up for the VIP was kind of like, the last year I had to make sacrifices of kind of going, well, I can't go to this because it'll be done, and then there's only like 30 minutes to go to the other one, and the queue may already kind of like be done. So it's kind of like you can maybe do like 2 major panels a day if like one's right at the start and one's right at the end, but or you choose something like one right in the middle and you do other things. And it was kind of, I think the only time we couldn't use the VIP, and I think this is probably more of a systematic issue of VIPs choosing not to go to the hall, because the queue on Friday morning was the Funhouse panel straight away on like Friday lunchtime. That was kind of like when I got there with like maybe 5 minutes before the start of it, they were just like, yeah, VIP spaces are already taken up. And I think that was probably due to people just going, well, we're not going on the floor because there's so much of an issue. So that might have driven more traffic to there than may have kind of they thought about going to there anyway. But I think I got out of it what I wanted to get out of it, which is effectively the ability to watch a panel, go out, go to something else within like half an hour. And that meant that I could go to... I didn't really go to that many of like what most people might class as like big ones. There was like the Funhouse panel, like the No panel, I did like a production design of Rooster Teeth.
I went to that one as well. I thought that panel was fantastic. It was very interesting.
So yeah, like some of the better ones that I went to really are like the ones which are pretty much for all the people who were kind of like in the background normally. So live action behind the scenes one was great. RT broadcast one was really good. Yeah, the production design one, that was really good. And then also the RTAA one was really good on Sunday morning.
Oh, cool.
For me, that's kind of like, there are things once you go to RTX once, you kind of realise that there are some ones where they show things that they don't show otherwise. So there's panels like those, kind of like they have content which they can't show. So either there's something that they filmed which they decided that actually we're not going to put this out in the end. So in the production one, no, actually it was the live action one which I went to at some point. Live action behind the scenes, they showed like a short which they were just like, yeah, we're never actually going to show the short because we've kind of decided that it kind of just doesn't quite work or doesn't fit the image that we want to portray. Honestly, I was fucking laughing like throughout the whole entire time, and I was just like, that's something that was absolutely hilarious, but I can kind of get why they're not going to show it. But it was kind of, and the same with like with the other ones, you just get to see some behind the scenes stuff that isn't necessarily shown. Like a lot of the main panels, well, the podcast one, the off topic, they're shown as the episode ones like the week afterwards, so I could just watch it on the on the street, or like just watch it like I would the normal episode afterwards. So that didn't quite grab my attention as much as the other ones.
I went to the Red versus Blue panel, and like I wasn't expecting much from it. There were questions, but they showed the new episode at the time, the one that was going to be coming out on the Sunday, and it was the episode where Griff has all of the balls with everyone's face on it. It turns out he's learned Spanish, and one of the characters, like a character from a previous season, turns up again. And they said that they are so happy with the way it turned out. And I was very happy with the way it turned out, that I watched that episode with a crowd of people.
Yeah.
Because I think that episode was kind of the perfect episode to be shown at RTX. And yeah, that was just fantastic. And they are lucky that it turned out that way, because yeah, I thought it was fantastic, and I'm glad that's the way it turned out. And that was just thoroughly enjoyable. Did you also go to the Ask the CEO panel?
I didn't. I kind of... Okay. It was one of the ones... There was that and like the Founding Fathers panel were ones that I thought about kind of like going to. But I also have a moment, a part of me that goes like, that is the panel where I think the most cringiest sort of questions are going to be asked. So I can't sit there and listen to like the how do I work for Rooster Teeth question, which is just like has been answered probably 40,000 times in the past and in various ways and circumstances, which effectively is make content, make lots of it, get fans, and then who knows, kind of like they might want to do a collaboration at some point, and then who knows, you know, also you probably shouldn't actually be aiming to work for Rooster Teeth. You should be aiming to use your talent in a way that you want to use it, and if that happens to cross over with Rooster Teeth at some point in the future, then that's good, but shouldn't be probably aiming just to work for them.
Yeah, Bernie put it.
Now I don't know if I was completely wrong with like what that CEO panel was like, if they actually got some intelligent questions, but my fear that it would just... There were a lot of
intelligent questions, but there was one cringy question, and that was just no one understood what this person was going for, and it was just a reference to, I think, a Ruby thing, and it just didn't make any sense or fit the mood of the room. But there was a lot of interesting things being asked at the Ask the CEO panel. The way my brain works is that I'll talk or listen to things for a while, and my brain will just generate questions following up on things. So at the start of the panel, I was like, I don't really know what I want to ask. And then by the end of the panel, I had like a full list of things. I spoke to Matt. When did I speak to Matt? I spoke to Matt after the documentary panel. And he said to send an email to a certain email address. So it was just like a generic Rooster Teeth email address and then put a FAO on it. And so yeah, I'm gonna send that over to him as well. And it was a cool thing. But yeah, like that panel was all right. It was definitely informative. I can't really remember what was asked now, but I'm sure like it would come up in my brain were I to think hard enough on it. And like I said, the other panel I went to was the documentary panel, which was awesome. They showed the new unconventional documentary.
Yes,
the one
I was there as well.
You were there. Awesome. And that was the last panel of the weekend. It started at 4:30 and ended at 6 when the convention centre closed. And they sent everyone back at the end of the panel as well. And what was the most adorable thing of the whole weekend was they sent everyone away, and then there was a little girl walking away, and they were just like, no, you get to ask your questions. And then she asked everyone what their favourite colour was, and then another question that I can't quite remember right now. But that was a really cool way to close out the convention.
Yeah, it was. I think that was a good choice, kind of putting it there as kind of like, for me, it felt like it was a very good kind of closing kind of piece. It was a little bit more sedate than kind of everything else that kind of like had happened. Kind of as I'd watched like a couple of Funhouse things, and even kind of like the Glitch Please panel and the No stuff, they kind of just brought it down to a nice level. Like I really find the arty docs interesting. I think they're kind of, I watch a lot of documentaries, and kind of I find them either like just sometimes they're just like utterly ludicrous, and I'm just kind of like wonder what you're trying to get out of them, and kind of wondering kind of like what they do. It's kind of like Artie's always a weird one, because kind of like the docs sit behind the paywall, and I know I asked a question about this, and you might be there. It's kind of like, it's kind of there to kind of say like, well, it's to maybe like entice people in to kind of actually coughing up the $2.99 a month or whatever it is, so to actually kind of like watch them. But it just feels like an interesting thing to kind of put something where you're maybe more than anything else trying to get like an idea or a message across. Yeah. But no, I think that was a good panel to finish on. It was kind of like, it was just a nice way to do that. Now the question is,
I think. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say kind of like the VIP party.
Okay, cool. Let me just finish on the documentary thing, because I had a question that I'd written up like while we were watching the panel about whether an unexpected narrative had come up during the documentary, like just something else that they weren't trying to tell a story of that became a story within the thing. And I luckily ran into Daniel at the side quest final night party thing, and asked him the question. And he just said the one that stands out and as an example is the Let's Play Live one, where Jack lost his mind against everyone and there was lots of angry shouting. Like, that's a whole thing that just didn't, what they weren't aware of until after, and they were reviewing the footage, and I was like, oh, that was cool. So yeah, but it wasn't exactly an answer I was looking for, but that's more me looking for answers that I'm not sure really exist.
Yeah, you want to know whether kind of like with the unconventional one, whether they were really looking to kind of see if they would actually be like properly shunned, or if there was kind of like some weird things, or whether the meme one, whether they could actually kind of, they'd come out of it like slightly differently. I think they probably researched stuff to enough detail that it would have to take something kind of like quite surprising. And I think the live aspect of the Let's Play Live documentary meant that kind of it was going into kind of relatively complete unknown, so you could kind of, you've got no idea exactly what's going to happen there. That was kind of, I kind of never done anything on that sort of scale, but like if you do a project that's like is you, and it's kind of like, this is entirely your idea, this is something you've really wanted to do, and it's kind of like, this is like make or break moment, and if you feel that someone is fucking with that, like I 100% get how the way Jack kind of like responded there, and it's kind of like, I've had those moments in like in work, nothing where it's kind of like anywhere near that sort of scale or anything which I'm potentially that passionate about, but it's kind of, this is not the time to be fucking with me. I will kind of like, I will destroy anybody who fucks with me like right now. This is kind of like, so kind of, I get that. And then you have that moment then where they kind of like they talk a little bit afterwards, and you just kind of like you can tell that these guys have like, well, fuck me, they're friends. They've been friends for like, a considerable amount of time. They've been colleagues for a huge amount of time. So you could always kind of tell that there was kind of like maybe something that was. You have a friendship like that, shit boils over at some point, and so heightened pressure situations.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So you were leading on to the VIP party.
Yes.
So what did you make
now,
of
Now, for the party in itself, I had thoroughly enjoyed myself. It was kind of like I had a good time. The bands that they had play were kind of interesting. The band that they had towards the end, the cover band, was actually really quite good. They were really had a great stage presence and a great kind of like that. So that was kind of like it was really fun to kind of like get involved with that. People kind of did, but because of how big kind of like the venue was, and effectively like the stage was down away from kind of like where a lot of the people were, because they were where everybody else was where all like the arty staff was. It kind of the whole party itself maybe felt slightly split, and I enjoyed myself. I kind of got to chat with a few people, like in any of those sorts of scenarios. Like it's the same with the panels. I'm not going to try and go talk to Jack or Jeff or Lawrence or something like that. I'm going to talk to. I had like a great conversation with like Jordan Battle, who kind of does like 2D animation, and he's now like one of the co-actual directors and producers of RCAA going forward, because Jordan's no longer, or Schweers is no longer doing that now. So it's kind of like it was great to have a conversation with him. Like had a great conversation with Max as well. So it's kind of like some of those people that maybe aren't as forward facing, that people will give you some time to kind of actually just have a chat with them, and that was really interesting for me to kind of like talk to a lot of the people kind of like behind kind of like that main screen. Saying that, speaking to people who had been VIP before, it was a very different party to what had been previously. Now, I can't say that I had any cons. Like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I got what I particularly personally what I wanted out of it. It was a good time. I met some new people, made some new friends, kind of. So as far as I was concerned, that was a load of fun. But if I had any kind of like real idea of what actually had happened in previous years, then maybe it would have been a bit of a letdown. But what was your thoughts?
I thought the party was fine. We probably turned up and stayed for about 30 minutes, and that was it.
Yeah, I think it's something that definitely
long,
could have not been somebody's scene or something like that, with like the huge bit of kind of like live music playing out. Kind of, it was outdoors. It was gravel, so if you're wearing anything that wasn't kind of like particularly good, or the footwear wise, you kind of like you could feel it. Yeah, I think it was. I don't know how they've done like the VIP parties before, and whether they've been in like just like rooms or places where there are areas where music isn't blasting out really loud, that certain people can enjoy it. But I think that's definitely something that would have turned some people off. Not me personally, but
yeah, I mean, I'd have enjoyed it. It's just there were other things to do, people to go and chill out with, and just hang around and just get stuff done. And it was fine. We ran into Gray, and I can't remember if there was anyone else we actually spoke to. Might have said hi to Max actually. And it was fine. Like, yeah, it was all right. There was a lot of people there, but that's more a problem that I don't know. To me, it felt like they kind of equated the double gold membership to the amount of VIPs that they needed to have, which felt wrong. I don't know if you can speak to that at all, because I don't know how many double gold members there are, but there were probably triple the amount of VIPs this year as there were to last year, which meant everything felt a bit more, I don't know, less special, less VI, really.
Yeah, and I kind of like, it's kind of, with not having done it last year, just spoken to people who had, it kind of, that definitely might have been the case. I think there was like 1,500 like this year.
Yeah, that sounds about the number
that kind of like
just kept floating
banded around. Yeah. And I think somebody said that there was about 700 like 650 last year. So I think, but I think in a lot of things though, as far as I was concerned, there was like in all the panels we've discussed kind of like never really had the issue kind of like being turned away for that VIP thing there. I
Yeah.
think the one time that it maybe made the difference was the party. As far as I've been told for other things, like this time there was like a select area where only like the staff members could go, and that's not something that had existed previously.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, kind of like I think for maybe some people who've done it for a few years before, it kind of like it didn't feel as VIP as it did. It was kind of like can't really compare it because we've not done it before.
Yeah.
It was an enjoyable enough experience for me. I think it enabled me to kind of have extra things to the part, or extra things to the weekend, which I wouldn't have been able to do without it. I think you are right in saying that like a lot of things about going out to RTX was to meet up with friends and catch up with people who live in the US, and then therefore kind of like the only chance to kind of catch up with them in person is at this sort of event. It's kind of
Yeah.
would I go back again? I don't know. I think RTX in London this year is going to make a real difference to whether I kind of like I choose to go out again next
Yeah.
year at least. Mainly because
Hopefully,
it's
it's
kind
going
of
to be a nice shift to like really see activity in the UK community bump up, and that we do have our own like flagship event here, rather than having to make a in quotes pilgrimage over to Austin to actually go and see a bunch of people there. I'm in kind of a split mind about it. I'm not too keen to go to RTX again. However, it is the one time of year where I do get to meet up with a lot of my American friends, and that's a positive about it. But at the same time, it's the event itself. I'm not too concerned about. Like, I could, I don't even really know what to say about it other than I had a good time, but I could probably get just as good a view watching at home on Twitch for the panels, or I could just buy a weekend pass and stay in the apartment for any of the panels that I do want to watch, and then go to the floor and meet up with friends for the rest of the time. I don't
yeah. I
know.
think kind of like the one thing that we both did, like I didn't get a chance to do some of it this time, but I did it last year. Is the RT side quest stuff, which is like a charity
Yeah.
thing. So
Hmm.
that's where a lot of kind of like a few of my friends went to that as well. So it was kind of and a few kind of like a few staff members go to that as well. Like not generally much of the main forward-facing talent. A few people will show up like randomly every now and then. Like Miles was there and like Matt was there for a bit, and but it's that's definitely once again more back people like talk to Chelsea for ages, kind of like just chatting shit. More kind of like trying to tease any information out for about RT London.
Yeah.
So I spend most of the time kind of like talking to people who might have a clue. Kind of like, so what can you tell me about RTX London?
Hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of yeah, like and then you push it to that. It's like RTX London. It's like it's going to be the first one this year. I'm guardianing, kind of because
Nice.
I think we slightly might have discussed this on either here before or between us personally before. It's like I had the money to go out to US and kind of go see that. I know a lot of people don't, so it's kind of like I want to make them have like a good experience in the UK, and I also want it to be a good experience in the UK. So in the future, it will still kind of like happen in the future. So
Yeah.
maybe a year where I don't want a guardian, I can go and kind of like I can go and enjoy it myself. So it's kind of like make sure this first year kind of does well, and then kind of they'll continue to do things, they'll continue to expand things. Like there was a double gold Q&A actually on Friday, which was
Friday.
with the events team,
Hmm.
and I took part in that and asked kind of like a fair like number of questions to them about it, and it's one of those things where they say like it's a like a soft landing, if you know what I mean. It's gonna be get something in, kind of like get it working, and then build on it. It's almost like the same like they've done with Austin. It's kind of like they didn't start off with kind of saying, yeah, let's have a 20,000 person event because
Yeah.
they maybe could have got like they maybe could have sold way more tickets than they do every single year because they can. It's kind of like they have like international fan bases. They can easily sell more tickets to probably to an RTX London this year, but it's talking about kind of making sure that it works right and it's something which is scalable. It's like they're
Yeah.
not going to have I'm relatively certain that they said they're not going to have like a concert in the UK this year like they did with the first time in RTX. This year
It's
they're
Sydney.
probably like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
well, yeah,
or,
yeah, well they did it, and yeah, and then they're probably like they might not bring a couple of things over which they did in Austin just because of kind of like timings and just trying to do that. But yeah, it's interesting. It was very interesting to kind of talk to them about what other places they kind of looked at.
mm-hmm.
They pretty much said that kind of like they decided on London fairly kind of quickly was the place they were going to do it if they were going to do anything in Europe or the UK, just because of the ease of getting things kind of like to or from there from their side, as well as kind of like past experiences of doing anything in the UK.
Yeah.
And so, but then they talked about kind of going to like Billings. They had a look at Billingsgate Market. I don't know if you've ever been there, or the Tobacco Dock,
No,
which is where they do a lot of like the res places, and they're kind of like really quite small venues where I think they could have done this year, but they never could have like expanded afterwards. So it was fairly kind of choosing the XL is kind of like, well, if they really want to go big at some point, like they can just slowly expand through the XL and just take a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more each year. And
yeah.
I think it's like, personally, I think it's pretty much like nigh on the perfect venue for them to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Probably slightly biased because I lived like 25 minutes away from it. But...
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. The XL's quite far for me to get to. It's like 2-hour journey, but that's because I don't live in London. But yeah, it seems to be good. I would have preferred to see it in Birmingham, but that's just me because Birmingham's cheaper. The NEC is, I don't know, more accessible for me, but you know, that's personal preference rather than like having to actually plan the event. So that's fine. But yeah, so RTX was on the whole all right.
Yeah, I think kind of like
right.
I had a thoroughly enjoyable time. I think, as I think both of us have said, probably more to do with meeting up with friends and that lot than kind of like actually the panels. I think kind of like the thing that I like to do is meet more of the background staff really than the main talent, because you can get a few times with the main talent, but they're flooded. They'll always be flooded because they are really like the people that some people want to go see, and where it was more kind of just fun chatting to some like the background talent and kind of just the people who kind of like actually make it tick.
Yeah.
When you really think about it, and some of those were like really interesting people with some kind of like fairly interesting stories. Like, it's gonna really annoy me now because I can't remember his fucking name, but the guy. Have you watched Relationship Goals? Any of those?
Yeah.
So the guy who plays the sax.
Okay. Yeah.
In that, he's actually like an animator.
Okay.
He's not just like a random person. So it's just kind of like they're like that whole entire band is actually people who work at like Rooster Teeth. So
fair enough.
So, but they're all kind of people like you've never seen before because they're all kind of like backstage people. So it's kind of.
So yeah, you wouldn't expect to see them anyway. So.
Yeah, no, it was kind of like, it was quite funny because I went up to him and I was just like, "Oh my god, you're sax man."
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you very much for being my guest this week as we wrap up this discussion about RTX. Where can we find you across the internet?
On any gaming site, be it PlayStation, Steam, or Xbox, I am Russman2K, and on the fine Twitter sphere, I am at @Ism.
Awesome. I can be found across the internet at DestroyTop or at Etherfar, which is YTHAFAR. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Russell, for being my guest this week.
Thank you very much for inviting me, sir. It was a pleasure as always.
No problem, and have an exciting week. Goodbye.
Goodbye.